What if you came to Japan on holiday and never even knew that you've been profiled and discriminated against? Japan's largest restaurant reservation platform is quietly charging international customers more than Japanese customers for the exact same meal at the exact same restaurant.
This is not a tourist tax anymore. This is discrimination with a real smart trick.
And almost nobody booking through it realizes it's happening.
But I did, and I'll tell you exactly how at the end of this video.
Tabelog, Japan's largest restaurant reservation platform, now runs two entirely separate booking systems. The overseas version requires a credit card upfront and charges a 440 yen booking fee. The Japanese version, no card required, no fee.
And here's what makes this even worse than a sign at a castle gate. You can't opt out of something that you don't even know is actually happening to you.
Elsewhere in Okinawa's Junglear theme park, the English language site charges 8,800 yen for a day pass. Switch the page to Japanese, same ticket, same ride for just 6,930 yen. No sign tells you this at the gate. Compare that to Himeji Castle. From March 2024, residents pay 1,000 yen. Non-residents pay 2,500 yen. That's 150% more. But it's on a sign, at a booth, in public. You see it before you pay.
One of these is a policy you can argue with. The other is a policy you never get to see.
Kyoto is now proposing the same model for its city buses, up to 400 yen for non-residents, 200 yen for residents, against a current flat fare of 230 yen. At least that one will likely require a fare card check. The invisible version, the Tabelog version, has no such requirement at all. The internet already has a name for the visible version, Gaijin, the Japanese word for foreigner, but nobody has named the invisible one yet. But is this really discrimination? Japan welcomed 42.7 million international visitors in 2025, a 15.8% jump over the previous record, and the first time Japan has ever surpassed 14 million. These visitors are not paying Japanese taxes. They are not funding the roads, the trains, or the heritage sites they are using. Japanese taxpayers are.
The argument is clean. If you benefit from something, you should pay for it. Tourists benefit more, so tourists pay more.
A nationwide survey found over 60% of Japanese residents support charging tourists more. And you know what? Many tourists themselves agree. Foreign visitors in Japan have repeatedly said in comments and interviews, "This is fair. I paid more in Thailand, in Bali, in the Philippines. Differential pricing in Asia is not new. The Taj Mahal charges foreign visitors more than 20 times the domestic price. France's Louvre Museum charges non-EU visitors 45% more than EU residents. This is how much of the world already works."
Basically, the rest of the world is already doing this. So why does it feel so different when Japan does this?
That omakase dinner that costs $250 in New York runs $75 in Japan right now. A coffee that costs $5 in Paris costs less than $2 in Tokyo. Foreign visitors, especially those coming from dollar or euro economies, are getting an extraordinary deal. Two-tier pricing closes part of the gap without raising costs for the Japanese residents who live with the consequences every single day.
If you find this useful, subscribe. I cover stories like this every week. And here's the part that the Japanese government has not answered.
The Gaijin tax is built on residency status, but enforcing the distinction at scale without universal ID checks risks defaulting to something else entirely. Who looks like they belong?
Japan has a well-documented racial profiling problem. A 2025 survey found that 71% of visibly foreign residents have been stopped by the police on the streets, and that's 5.6 times more than any Japanese citizen.
Himeji does this correctly. Visitors must show a residence card, driver's license, or My Number card to qualify for the local rate. Foreign residents with valid documentation pay the local price. But Himeji used a legal system. Not every site will. And as the system expands nationally without a verified framework in place, the default enforcement mechanism becomes the oldest one in the book: how someone looks.
This is not hypothetical. In 2024, Himeji City tried to charge foreign tourists 6 times the local rate. The city council rejected it on grounds of discrimination.
And it's not just tourists from the West. This creates a massive identity crisis for millions of people who look Japanese but don't live here. There are approximately 4 million Nikkei people worldwide, ethnic Japanese and their descendants who emigrated to Brazil, Peru, the United States, and other countries. Brazil alone has 2 million people of Japanese descent. Under a visual identification system, which is what the Gaijin Tax becomes the moment you remove document verification, a Nikkei Brazilian tourist could pay the same rate at one site and the tourist rate at the next. A South Asian or black foreign resident with full documentation could still be flagged first because of how they look.
Without documents checks at every site, this becomes a judgment call made with a glance. That's not a pricing system anymore. That's a visual audit.
On paper, this is about where you live. In practice, without universal document verification, it will be about appearance. Those are not the same thing, and the Japanese government has not resolved that gap. There is one more question nobody is asking loudly enough. Where is the money going? Kyoto has collected billions of yen in accommodation taxes over several years. The number one complaint in the city's own survey remains bus overcrowding so severe that residents cannot board.
When done right, the extra revenue should go directly to the site itself, and that's how it should work.
But Kyoto's record on ring-fencing tourism revenue is not clean. And as the Japan Tourism Agency drafts national guidelines expected by fiscal 2026, with formal rules by March 2027, the critical question is whether this becomes an accountable infrastructure fund or another revenue mechanism that pays for signage while the buses stay full. Barcelona, Venice, and Amsterdam all tried pricing, but the crowds kept coming. The cities that have actually shifted the pressure did something Japan has not seriously attempted. They invested in infrastructure. They built transport links to distribute tourists deliberately. They made the smaller places worth visiting.
A price tag is not a policy, and it definitely does not build a train line to Akita.
A tourist tax that only applies where tourists already go does not redistribute anything. It just makes the overcrowded places more expensive. Akita, Shimane, Tottori, the prefectures that actually need the economic activity aren't part of this conversation at all. The Gaijin tax as currently designed protects the golden route from itself. It does nothing for the places dying quietly outside it.
Japan is a country of extraordinary precision. It can build a bullet train that runs to the second. And it can absolutely build a dual pricing system that is fair, transparent, and legal.
The question is whether it will, or whether it will settle for the shortcut and let the ticket booth decide who looks Japanese enough. I didn't go looking for this story, I was just having dinner.
I booked through the English version of Tabelog without thinking twice, and I paid about 440 yen per person for that meal. Of course, I assumed that it was standard, but apparently it wasn't. And I only realized this when the server let slip later on that the table next to mine, which belonged to a Japanese couple, they didn't have to pay a cent. So it was absolutely free for them to actually make that booking. So you can imagine. Dual pricing?
That's the entire problem in one sentence. I didn't notice. I wasn't supposed to.
A sign at a castle gate, you can question before you pay. But this, I only found out after the bill was settled.
The question is simple, and Japan has not answered it yet.
Fair is possible, but being fair requires more than a different price at the gate. It requires a price that you're allowed to see before you even sit down.
If you haven't watched the first Japan video, where this whole story started, it's linked right here. And if you want the source breakdown of every stat in this video, that's in this week's Rabbit dossier. Link in the description.
Have you been charged differently in Japan? At a ticket booth or at a restaurant? Tell me below. I want to know what happened to you too.